issue of stealing state-owned media, I am not aware that anything of that nature has come to cabinet, but should it come, there has to be a justification for it. We'll await any such thing that will come. I'm not aware that there's a proposal to sell the state-owned media. But if it comes, it has to be justified, and of course, a big decision like that will have to be undertaken with a lot of consultation of stakeholders. The third question, third question is about what the former president supposed to have said about me being an economic messiah, supposedly, who has failed. Sometimes I get a little surprised and amazed the former president when he talks about economic mismanagement, because he should know his own record. I mean, we don't all have short memories. We really don't all have short memories. His record in economic management, what he left us with in 2016 was an abysmal record. It's just an abysmal record. We had endured doing so for 4 years with all the destruction of industry and livelihoods that happened. People died because of doing so. Hospitals. The National Health Service was virtually collapsed. Remember, we are basically back to a cash and carry system. The National Ambulance Service was virtually dead. We had maybe about 37 ambulances for the whole country. Unemployment as a result was very high. Agriculture, GDP growth had declined to 3.4%. 3.4%. Agricultural growth had declined to 2.9%. Of course, industry growth had collapsed because of doing so. Unemployment was high. There was a freeze on public recruitment as a result. And the banking sector was on the verge of collapse. We had, as a result, a cancellation of teacher training allowances, a cancellation of nursing training allowances. You had a 3-month pay policy for teachers who worked for 3 years and be paid. And many children could not attend senior high school because of difficulties of paying fees and so on. You had many challenges that he left us with. So when you juxtapose that record with what we have been able to do in these last 8 years almost, it's really night and day. We have created at least 2.1 million jobs. The latest number I saw was 2.3 million. But let's say at least 2.1 million jobs in the last 7 years. And this is hard data I'm talking about. 2.1 million jobs. We've kept the public sector workers employed and fully paid through the COVID pandemic. We didn't lay anybody off. And if you look at it, we've built more roads, 3 times more the length of roads than what he did in office. We've built more railway than any other government in the Fourth Republic. Expanded rural telephony. There were 78 sites for rural telephony when we came in. Today there are 1,008 sites for rural telephony. We built more libraries, public libraries, than any other government. I mean, his time he built only 3 8 years, 3 public libraries, 8 years. And we've built 54 public libraries in 8 years. We've constructed about 12 major fish landing sites across the country. Zim, Dixco, Marie, Mumford, Winneba, Senyabriko, Gomoa, Fete, Teshi, Usu, Ikumfi, and Fatima. Constructed 2 fishing houses in Elmina and Jamestown. Constructed more sanitation facilities, 817, than any other government in the Fourth Republic. This has increased the proportion of the population with access to toilet facilities from 33% in 2016 to 80%. And 5,400 communities have been declared open defecation free. We built more sports facilities in Ghana than any other government in the Fourth Republic. Whether you're talking about Boteman, the University of Ghana, and so on. When we came into office, there were only 3 astroturfs in the whole of Ghana. The whole of Ghana, 3. Today you have over 150. We've abolished the 3-month pay policy, constructed 120 courts were constructed, 80 have been completed with bungalows, and we've kept the lights on, live broadly in the last 8 years. We've restored teacher and nursing training allowances. We've increased the beneficiaries of scholarships by 70%. And the national health insurance is now being extended to cover sickle cell patients with hydroxyurea, very expensive drug. I led the negotiations for that to happen. We have extended the national health insurance to cover childhood cancer, extended the national health insurance to cover kidney dialysis for over 60s and under 18s. We saved the deposits of 4.6 million bank depositors who really were going to lose their deposits if those banks were not saved. I don't understand whether the former president has taken his time to actually understand what happened in the banking sector. Some atrocious things happened. And this is why these banks had to be saved. They were not collapsed, they were merged into other banks. And we know banking depositor lost 1 city. Everybody maintained that you had very bad things happening. Some of the banks broke all the rules and extended loans way above the single obligor limits. We were given, in some cases, 1 billion cedis by the Bank of Ghana to help them get out of the mess, and they only got deeper into the mess. Another bank was giving capital to save the situation. It was giving money from the Bank of Ghana's lender of last resort facility, and they used that money to go and set up Capital Bank instead of rescuing the problem that they had. They took the money from the central bank and went to set up another bank, which was also collapsed. Some took money and went and invested in private property. So it was against this background when the governor came to report, and this was one of my nightmares as in the last 8 years. I couldn't sleep that night. That the banking system, most people didn't understand how close we were to a collapse of the entire banking system, but we were this close because all it would have taken was for a few depositors to go to UT Bank or UNT and they'll tell you there's no money. What would happen? There would have been a complete run on the banking system in Ghana. We would have collapsed the banking system. When the governor came to report that we were on the verge of collapse, decisions have to be taken to save the banking system and to save depositors. And this is how come we had to merge many of these banks into other banks. And we saved 4.6 million depositors. I will ask the former president, if he hasn't read, to go and read the receiver's report, or to go and read the Bank of Ghana report, and acquaint himself before making any further comments on matters he clearly does not understand. He needs to get an understanding before you make comments. And you cannot hand over a bank's license to them. This is subject to legal procedure. You have to go to court. You don't have the power in our constitution to do that. And I'm surprised sometimes because he has been president before and he should know these things. He should know these things. Ladies and gentlemen, we have tripled the capitation grant per child since we came into office, from 5 C's to 15 C's. And what is interesting also is that we've had the lowest increase in electricity tariffs in recent history. Between his time, 2009, and 2016, when they were in office, the average annual increase in electricity tariffs was 50% a year. That's the average. Some of the years were 80%. Between 2009 and 2016, 50% average a year to NAPO. I think that the program had about 100,000 people on it. And I think initially it was supposed to be a 3-year program, and then would be renewed and so on. But I think that so far, out of the 100,000 that were taken, 34,000 have exited into permanent jobs under NAPO. First, otherwise, if I do everything now, if I could, what would I do when I come into office? I mean, how can you do everything now? Even President Mahama, former president, who was president, I'm only vice president, but he was president. Why didn't he do everything then? I mean, why is he coming back? He had full authority. I don't have full authority. The budget that has gone to Parliament, which has been passed, is not my budget. Is it my budget? It's not my budget. The budget goes in the name of the president. It doesn't go in the name of the vice president. But when you have to think about what new do you want to do, you come up with new ideas. And I've come up with new ideas, which I want to do when we come into office. Everyone who is running for office, whether you are Kamala Harris or you are Bawumia, you still have to think about what you have to do when you get into office. And this is why I'm presenting my new ideas as to what to do. Samson talked about the scholarship student. I'm not aware of that, but we'll look at that. I cannot comment on that. It's not. I don't know where the data is coming from. Then the National Cathedral. National Cathedral, again, is a very, very important issue because, I mean, taxpayers' money has gone into it, and many people would like to see it completed. And I believe that one should have an engagement with the churches and all the stakeholders for us to see how best to get the funding to complete the project. But I think that we need to sit down and talk if the design has to be looked at again to make sure it can be completed. We have to put everything on the table. But I will be minded more by the churches and the church leaders and the discussions that we should have with them on the way forward. But I think it's an important issue. Thank you. Yes, the pharmacists are my very good friends. But you're talking about 322 pharmaceutical doctors who are threatening to sue the Ministry of Health for their allowances. Again, I want to take this one up. This is the first time I'm hearing about this particular issue. I think it is Sheldon who raised it. I'm not aware of it, but I think it's an important issue that we should really resolve. So we'll talk to the Ministry of Health and Finance. Thank you very much. No, I think that the categories will be different. And with a flat rate, what we want to do is to bring a lot more predictability in import duty payment. At the moment, there isn't predictability, and there's a lot of discretion that seems to come in from time to time. And so what we are saying is that we're going to bring in a flat rate in cedis. So if you are bringing in spare parts, and there's a 40-foot container of spare parts, you will know exactly what the duty is for the spare parts, say 20,000 cedis or 15,000 cedis or 30,000 cedis. It's a flat rate. So when the 40-foot container arrives of the spare parts, then you know you will pay 40,000. If you are bringing in second-hand clothing, and that is attracting 20,000 cedis duty, you will know beforehand that it will come. It's not that it will arrive and then the price will change because they will say the exchange rate has changed, so you pay more. But it will be a flat rate. So there's not going to be any confusion. Chicken will attract a different rate from, spare parts will attract a different rate from rice, will attract a different rate from second-hand clothing. But you will know beforehand, before the goods before you import the goods, they will all be published. And so that we get away from, these under invoicing and misclassification issues. These are really hampering revenue collection. Many importers invest time in misclassifying. They'll bring in chicken and they'll say it is fish or something. But the misclassification and so on, we will have to deal with that. Then the issue about cars for teachers and what we want to do for journalists and all of that. I really believe that one of the major problems, and we address this in the manifesto, that hampers workers and livelihoods in our country is the fact that we operate a cash-based system. Unlike in the advanced world where they operate a credit-based system. So in ab initio, life is much harder if you're a teacher in Ghana versus if you're a teacher in the US or the UK. Even if you are paid the same amount every month, the teacher in the UK will consume probably 5 to 6 times more goods than you in Ghana. Why? Because they are able to obtain credit and pay over time. And so we in Ghana here, we have to accumulate cash for whatever we want to buy. If you want to buy a car and the car is costing 100,000 or 150,000, you have to look for 150,000 to pay for the car. But if you were in the UK, you'll probably be paying 1,000 every month to pay for the car, or much less. But so your salary goes along a much longer way. So one of the things that we are bringing in as far as our manifesto is concerned is to move Ghana from a cash-based system to a credit-based system. It's very, very important because the reason why a credit-based system works in the advanced countries because they are able to compute credit scores for everybody. And credit scoring is key to a credit-based system because it then assesses the risk of any borrower in terms of borrowing money for a fridge or a car or a TV or whatever. So the credit scoring becomes very key. 14 years ago, I wrote a book on monetary policy and financial sector reform in Africa. This was in 2010. And in this book, I was making the case for why Ghana and Africa generally, we needed to move towards the credit-based systems. And the reason why is to really bring down the stress on living in our system. The reason why they are able to do what the credit system in the advanced countries is because the databases exist for the computation of the credit scores. So what you need, a unique identity that exists, address, it exists, financial inclusion, a bank account where it exists. So when we came into office, I was very clear in my mind where we wanted Ghana to go. We needed to put in place the digital address system, the Ghana card, which we have done. We needed to put in place the address system. When we looked at the address system, I realized that it was going to be very difficult to go with what we had before, street addresses and so on. So I proposed that we go with digital address systems. I mean, at the time, only one country in the world, Mongolia, had a digital address, a wholesale digital address system. Only one country in the world. But I said, look, Ghana should move in that direction because we can leverage on GPS technology and have a digital address system. Now, we have been able to get a digital address system, and we are the second country in the whole world to have a wholesale digital address system. Every part of Ghana, we can have a digital address. Now, then the third leg of this to allow us to get to credit scoring was to make sure most Ghanaians will have a bank account so that your financial transactions can be scored and monitored and so on. But when we came in, I realized that, of course, very small percentage of people had bank accounts, but a lot of people had mobile money accounts, and so I made the point that the key to get everybody financially included was to have that interoperability between the mobile money account and the bank account. And so we were able to do this mobile money interoperability. And so today, Ghana now has all the elements. All the elements are now in place for Ghana to move to a credit-based system. All the elements are now in place. And so we expect credit score. In fact, interestingly, when I made the point that individual credit scoring doesn't yet exist in Ghana, people were actually arguing, saying that that wasn't true, but that is absolutely true. So we are going to begin, proper wholesale individual credit scoring, which would then provide us a basis so that people can buy their cars. And someone was talking about the local producers and all of that. Once they know that we can offer this to teachers and they can pay over time, or to journalists and they can pay over time, and they don't have to bring all the cash at once, then life will be much more bearable to all of us. So my expectation is that the credit scoring system, things are moving much faster than I expected. It's in our manifesto, we're moving to it, but I think that it's likely to begin before the end of this year because of where we are. I expect to launch it reasonably soon because of where we are now. We've got everything in place, but that will fundamentally change everything for Ghana. Currently in Sub-Saharan Africa, it's only one country that has a credit scoring system in the credit. That is South Africa. Ghana will be, before the end of this year, the second country in Sub-Saharan Africa with a credit-based system. That it will bring down the pressure on all of our workers once we enter into that. Then there was a question that went on the lack of timelines for the manifesto in terms of promises and so on. I think that when you are going for an election, you are going for an election for a 4-year term initially, isn't it? Yeah, so your promises have to be in line with that term of office, right? That this is what I want you to elect me to do these things, right? But I think that we have a pretty good record in terms of honoring our promises. We've done some work to look at our 2016 manifesto, what proportion of those promises we've honored, and it has been 83% of the 2016 manifesto. Has been honored, 83%. And then when you look at the 2020 manifesto, 2020, even in the midst of all these crises, we are fulfilling, or we fulfill 80% of our 2020 manifesto. My opponent in his 2012 manifesto, when he became president, he only fulfilled 28%. We've done the numbers. 28% of his 2012 manifesto. 280 promises. He didn't fulfill 203 of the 280 promises. He only fulfilled 28% of his promises. So I think that we have a better record as far as fulfilling promises. And when I put something down, I usually have a good idea how I'm going to get it done. And so that is I think, something that we are going to look at. I think that the issue has come about suffering. And I remember very well, my statements. Teachers are suffering, and doctors are suffering, and journalists are suffering, and everybody is suffering. In 2016, which was the case actually, in that regard. But I think that we've moved on significantly since 2016, and we can point to a few things that we have, because at the end of the day, you reduce suffering broadly by creating jobs so that you give people something to do, or you bring in some social interventions to ameliorate the problems, the hardships that are there. So you need to look at what we have done. We've created at least 2.1 million jobs. Per capita income in CD terms has gone up almost more threefold. In dollar terms, per capita income from 2016 has gone up from 1,978 to 2,436. So GDP has gone up, per capita income has also gone up. As I said, we've kept all public sector workers employed. We didn't lay off anyone during the COVID, and we have done that, and we kept the lights on. We suffered so much from doomsday. Everybody was suffering from doomsday, but we have kept the lights on for 8 years. Teacher trainees were suffering. We restored their teacher trainee allowances. Nursing trainees were suffering. We've restored their allowances. people who were using the NHIS had major issues. The people who had sickle cell were suffering because the hydroxyurea, which was really needed, wasn't covered by the NHIS. Today it is covered by the NHIS. Today kidney dialysis is covered, as well as childhood cancer was also covered. You also see that for the people, the issue of rent advance, the National Rental Assistance Scheme has come in to really help in that. During COVID, we gave free water for a year, free electricity. For people in the rural areas and remote areas, we brought in medical drones to deliver medicines, vaccines, blood across 2,694 health facilities. And even recently, when there was flooding because of rain in the farm plains, we had to get the drones to take examination papers over there, which were not initially. Parents have now had the benefit of free SHS for 8 years. They've had the benefit of free TVET, and therefore the suffering of a lot of parents in paying fees has also reduced. School feeding, when we were coming in 2016, only 1.6 million children benefited from school feeding. Today, 4 million children are benefiting from school feeding, more than double. We have also absorbed the examination fees for all students for BEC and WACC examinations. And then, as I said before, we've doubled the number of student loan recipients from 30,000 to 58,000. We've introduced the no guarantor student loans. A lot of students who were suffering, looking for guarantors, now just need their Ghana card and they will get it. You know, so we've done quite a bit. We brought in one constituency, one ambulance, and we procured the ambulances for many of our constituencies or many of our districts. And also, if you look at the small and medium enterprises who had major problems in accessing funding, we provided funding over the last 8 years to 444,000 SMEs, 1.4 billion Ghana cedis, which has been quite significant by any account, and very historic in that regard. So I think that yes, the suffering is there, but we've done a lot of social interventions to ameliorate that suffering. It's not gone, but at least we can point to things that have gone in to reduce the suffering of our people. I mean, even renewing National Health Insurance card was a problem. Just to renew it, many people had to go and sleep. I know in my constituency, people had to go to the NHI office and sometimes sleep for 3 days before they could renew National Health Insurance membership. But today, you just sit in your home and renew. Today, you sit in your home and buy electricity credit. You don't need to take trotro or taxi and go somewhere else to do it. So we've done quite a bit to reduce the suffering of people, even though, of course, it is not complete. We still have more to do and will continue. So the other question, which is a nice one, Vanessa was asking, if the fundamentals are weak, the exchange rate will expose you, which is a truism. It was true then, and it's still true today. It's an economic truism that once the fundamentals weaken, you will see the impact on the exchange rate fundamentally. And when we talk about many of these fundamentals, we're talking about the GDP growth rate, you're talking about the fiscal balance, you're talking about the exchange, the reserves, level of the reserves that you have, inflation, and so on. When we came into office, during the first term before we hit COVID, between 2017 and 2019, you saw the fundamentals pretty much strengthening by all accounts. And the exchange rate depreciated in those 3 years by less than 5%. That was the lowest depreciation in the currency for 28 years. 28 years. That was the lowest depreciation of the currency. I think we went up, even after COVID, we didn't get that high a depreciation. But the biggest shock for the economy came in 2022. All hell was breaking loose in 2022. Inflation, 54% as at November 2022. Exchange rate had depreciated at 54%. And of course, you could look at the fundamentals were in trouble at that time. You saw the fiscal deficit going up, you saw inflation going up, growth declining. And so for me, it wasn't surprising, even though it was shocking, the extent to which the exchange rate went. So the point that we are making is that once the fundamentals weaken, you will get it shown in the exchange rate. And this is why we have seen that recently, even though we're depreciating in November at 54%, this year the depreciation has been 18.6% so far, right? We're looking at about 18.6%. So you're looking at a situation this year. Why is the depreciation lower? Because the fundamentals have strengthened. The fiscal deficit is under 5%. We are running a primary surplus. Growth has gone up first quarter to 4.7%, higher than projected. The reserves are increasing, and the Gold for Oil program is helping. So, as the fundamentals and inflation today is around 20%, so there's been a strengthening of the fundamentals, and you've also seen more relative exchange rate stability. In all of this, and I want you to take this away. When I look at what was happening in 2022, the 54% depreciation of the cedi, it was very scary. In fact, in 2022, this economy was on the verge of collapse, because you saw our reserves declining very steeply. The exchange rate was blowing up, inflation was up, and my worry at that time, frankly, was that I could see this country moving towards Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka was what was clearly in my mind at that time, because you saw protests in Sri Lanka. They had no fuel. Jumso was there. And when you saw the way our reserves were moving in 2022, we were heading right in that direction, that we were going to get queues on the street. We couldn't buy fuel, we couldn't pay for so many things. And it was in that context that I came up with two policies. One was the Gold for Oil policy and the gold purchase program of the Bank of Ghana, because we need to export cocoa or oil or diamonds or timber. We just buy the gold locally. That is what we have that many countries don't have. It's just something that many countries don't have that opportunity to do so. So I then came up with the idea that let's since we don't have forex at the bank to pay for oil, let's use gold. And therefore we went into this gold for oil and gold purchase program for reserves. And what is very, very interesting, frankly, without this gold for oil, the gold purchase program, this economy would have collapsed. There's no doubt in my mind. There's no doubt in my mind. Why do I say so? In the last couple of years, Bank of Ghana under the gold purchase about yo. Any mamin country kakra. I'm saying no asemi by kakra. You say yes, son. And she share your mining sector. Say, I'm saying for only need pen licenses. You mo. You the son. San she share. You be the easy mrepama ubia oye galam say ene ubenya mining license ODBH. So yedi some run by district committees, traditional leaders through the Minerals Commission. Umubenya licenses, umube register ne Ghana card. Then yebe community mining schemes. Geological Survey Authority. Behwehwe umu survey no. Na umu hu say ahana gold no, ahana gold no. And then say umu to gold no. A trial and error. Bakwa kutu ha wenya na wako ha wenya na wo say assassin. But yet the data, I can't say, Galamsey for or small scale miners. A hana go no into a shisha community mining scheme or ama monko untutu ya na ya to omu gold no adia call Bank of Ghana. MC San Shisha no na yedeba ibe shisha Minerals Development Bank ama mining, small scale mining sector also. Say the Agri Development Bank here, yes, share for if you are for a new Minerals Development Bank, small scale miners, not a no equipment. The common use, are there different common user facilities? If you two gold now could show one a high percentage of gold amount. Ama obia in the community mining schemes so that more gold from their activities. Enti san share basoa me jidi say I'm saying no betras we NCZ obia excavator na yasheno na or whatever sad no betraso na dia ko I heard about a front place and then Coco. I don't know. I'm missing the front place question. The bridge.
Yeah.
Yes, bridge.
And I Coco Sports Stadium 2020 because we see which they made us.
Yes. So the front place bridge, I think, is one of the bridges that we are working under with the Korean facility. It's one of the projects that we've presented to be done under the Korean facility. When we say the Koreans have given us a grant and a concessional loan of $2 billion, and we've had to take a number of projects to them for funding. I think that bridge over there from is one of them. And then the Coco Sports Stadium, I have to follow up with the minister on that one. I can't give you a direct answer on that. Then the question came, the first 100 days, what would you do? I'm definitely not taking a honeymoon. We are going to get straight to work to put things in place. I think that for me, the focus is on jobs. And so you have to put in the budget as quickly as possible so that you can make sure that the tax amnesty regime comes into place, the flat tax regime comes into place, so that by the time of your first budget in March, these things, the Ghana First, Buy Ghana First policy, that we put it in and pass the law so that we can get the Ghana First policy. The e-levy will go because we have to focus on digitalization of the economy, and so we need to take out the e-levy as well. So these are some of the things that I believe that we can do very, very, very quickly as we come in, within the first 100 days. But I think that we're going to be very, very hard at work to look at things that get business moving. The tariff structure of the businesses, commercial versus residential, we have to look at it. The flat rate regime has to come in immediately. Those things that will get business moving very quickly to create the jobs are the things that we are going to do immediately, so that we are serious about business and serious about job creation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellency.
They say necessity is the mother of invention, because when I looked at it, we were headed for disaster. But I made the case. I looked at the numbers, and I said, well, how are we going to get foreign exchange to buy fuel in this declining reserves? And then I looked at gold. I said, let's take a look at gold. I looked at the reserves of gold that we had, and it was 8.7 tons. 8.7. That is from independence to 2022. Our gold reserves were 8.7 tons. 8.7. I mean, when you look at the US, they had 8,000 tons in gold reserves. The UK, Germany, France, all about 2,000, 3,000 tons. In Ghana, the largest gold producer in Africa, had 8.7 tons. So I said this is something that we need to change. And so Ghana needs to start, because the thing about gold for us is that we don't have to export anything to get gold.
One people, it's your girl Abitemi, and I'm out here with Incommodate TV. Bro, if you're not watching Incommodate, what else are you doing? I think you're sleeping on a bicycle. Like, comment, and subscribe. See ya.